Silent approach. For 12,000 years, the Vashuri Empire had ruled the stars with unwavering certainty. Their graceful, crystalline vessels patrolled the spaceways between 10,000 worlds, their authority unquestioned by the dozens of species that paid tribute to the Empire's central worlds. Vashuri superiority was not merely a political reality, but a biological assumption. Their neural networks operated at triple the speed of most sentient species, their lifespans stretched across centuries, and their technological advancement had plateaued at a level that most races could barely comprehend. The first anomaly appeared in the data stream from Outpost Kethru-9, positioned on the coreward edge of the spiral arm. Technician Adept Moravane noticed it only because she had been tasked with recalibrating the deep space sensor array after reported malfunctions. What she found wasn't a malfunction, but a disturbance, faint, organized pulses that shouldn't exist in that region of space. Reporting anomalous signal pattern in sectors 87 through 94, she transmitted to her superior. Pattern suggests coordinated movement, but scale exceeds known parameters for trading convoys or migration fleets. The response came hours later, dismissive and curt. Recalibration of sensors required. Cosmic radiation interference likely. Continue monitoring, but do not escalate. Moravane obeyed, but she continued to track the signals. Over the next 14 cycles, the pattern intensified. What had been whispers became murmurs, and what had been shadows took form in the sensor data. Something vast was moving through the darkness beyond Imperial space. Something organized, purposeful, and utterly silent in the conventional communication frequencies the Empire monitored. It had been nearly 50 years since the Vashuri had encountered the species that called themselves humans. The meeting had been unremarkable. A small delegation arriving in a single vessel, requesting diplomatic recognition and trade agreements. The Imperial Diplomatic Corps had processed their request with standard efficiency, classifying humanity as a Category 4 emerging intelligence, capable of interstellar travel but lacking the biological or technological sophistication to be considered significant players in galactic affairs. The humans had been polite, even deferential. They had accepted the restricted trade routes offered to them, the limited technological exchange, the prohibition against colonial expansion beyond their home system. They had seemed grateful for even the most basic acknowledgement from the mighty Vashuri Empire. Sub-Admiral Tevrath, we have confirmation from 3 independent monitoring stations now, reported Fleet Intelligence Officer Narvik. The anomalous readings represent a coordinated fleet movement, ships numbering in the thousands, possibly tens of thousands. Sub-Admiral Tevrath's crystalline appendages flickered with irritation. Impossible. No species possesses a fleet of that magnitude. Even our Imperial Defense Force numbers only 8,000 vessels across all categories. The data is conclusive, sir. And there's more. They're on a direct course for the Vashuri core systems, maintaining perfect formation across a front that spans 15 light-years. Tevrath's irritation turned to amusement. And what species do you propose has secretly built such a fleet without our knowledge? The Tyrol. They can barely maintain their aging defensive platforms, the Keth Dominion. They've been our vassals for millennia. Narvik hesitated before answering. The trajectory analysis suggests they're coming from the direction of human space, sir. The sub-admiral's laughter echoed through the command chamber. Humans. Those primitives in their single star system. They were still burning fossil fuels when we first detected their radio emissions. This is clearly a sensor malfunction or a natural phenomenon we've not cataloged before. But Narvik persisted. We've dispatched reconnaissance drones, sir. The first visual data is arriving now. The holographic display in the center of the command chamber flickered to life, showing a section of deep space that should have been empty. Instead, it revealed rank upon rank of ships, angular, utilitarian vessels that bore no resemblance to the elegant designs of the Vashuri or their vassal species. The ships were dark, absorbing light rather than reflecting it, with only minimal running lights visible along their hulls. They moved in perfect unison, maintaining formation with a precision that suggested highly advanced navigational systems. "Magnify," ordered Tevrath, his amusement fading. The image zoomed in on one of the vessels. It was massive, easily the size of a Vashuri dreadnought, but with none of the ornate architecture or crystalline superstructure that marked Imperial warships. This vessel was built for one purpose only: war. "These cannot be human vessels," Tevrath said, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. "The design matches no known species in our databases," Narvik confirmed. "But the formation is heading directly for our territory from the direction of human space." Throughout the Imperial hierarchy, reports began to flow. Border outposts reported unusual readings. Long-range patrols went silent after investigating anomalies. A scientific research station in the outer systems transmitted a single image of dark ships on the horizon before all communication ceased. Yet at each level of command, the reports were minimized, rationalized, or dismissed entirely. The Vashuri Empire had stood unchallenged for 12 millennia. It was inconceivable that any species, least of all humans, could pose a genuine threat. In the Imperial Palace on Vashur Prime, the Emperor's High Council gathered to discuss the growing number of reports. "These readings cannot be accurate," insisted Grand Admiral Zethfar, the Empire's highest military authority. "Our intelligence indicates that humanity possesses no more than 200 interstellar vessels, most of them short-range exploratory or trading ships. They have no warships capable of threatening even our smallest patrol craft." High Counselor Imarithi, ancient even by Vashuri standards, leaned forward in her levitation chair. "When did we last update our intelligence on human capabilities?" The question hung in the air for a moment before an aide consulted a data terminal. "The last comprehensive assessment was conducted 43 standard years ago, Excellency. Routine surveillance has continued, but no detailed analysis has been deemed necessary given their Category 4 classification." 43 years, Imarithi repeated. "And how long is a human generation?" "Approximately 20 to 25 standard years, Excellency." The ancient counselor's crystalline appendages dimmed slightly. "So nearly 2 generations have passed since we truly looked at them. 2 generations during which we've largely ignored them." Grand Admiral Zethfar made a dismissive gesture. "Even given 2 generations, the technological and industrial leap required to build a fleet that could challenge us is impossible. We are the Vashuri. We have ruled the stars since before their ancestors discovered metallurgy. Pride," Imarithi said softly, "has been the downfall of empires far older than ours." As the council debated, a priority transmission arrived from the commander of the Ninth Fleet, stationed at the border of Imperial space. "This is Fleet Admiral Corvinus," came the urgent voice. "We have visual confirmation of an unknown fleet approaching Imperial territory. Numbers exceed anything in our records. They're maintaining communication silence and ignoring all hails. We are positioning for defensive action, but request immediate reinforcement. Sending visual data now." The council chamber's main display activated, showing a view from the flagship of the Ninth Fleet. What they saw silenced even the most skeptical voices. Beyond the elegant formation of Vashuri warships loomed a darkness, rank upon rank of vessels stretching beyond visual range. They moved with perfect coordination, like a single organism with thousands of parts, utterly silent in their approach. "Magnify central vessel," ordered the Emperor, speaking for the first time. The image zoomed in on what appeared to be a command ship at the center of the formation. Unlike the others, this one bore markings, a stylized depiction of a human planet, encircled by a wreath of stars, and below it, words in the human language known as English. USEF Retribution, United States of Earth Federation. Translated in aid automatically. In that moment, the Empire's certainty cracked. The humans had not arrived to negotiate. They had not come to plead or bargain. They had come in overwhelming force, with purpose and planning that spoke of years, perhaps decades, of preparation. How did we not see this coming? demanded the Emperor, his voice cutting through the stunned silence. High Counselor Imarithi's ancient voice quavered as she answered, "Because we chose not to look. Because we decided they were insignificant." The first shots were fired 3 hours later. The Ninth Fleet, pride of the Imperial Navy, lasted less than 20 minutes against the human onslaught. Their elegant crystalline vessels, designed as much for beauty as for battle, shattered under concentrated fire from multiple human warships that attacked with coordinated precision. As the reports of destruction reached the imperial capital, the truth became impossible to deny. Humanity had spent 50 years preparing, building, planning, all while the Vashiri had dismissed them as primitives barely worth monitoring. Now they had arrived with a single purpose, moving across imperial space like a scythe through grain, and the mighty Vashiri Empire found itself facing something it had not known in 12,000 years. Fear. Reckoning Day. The Imperial War Council chamber, once a place of measured deliberation and strategic planning, had devolved into chaos. Holographic displays showed the human fleet's inexorable advance through Imperial territory, system after system falling silent as the Dark Armada passed through. 7 days had passed since the destruction of the Ninth Fleet, and in that time, 17 border systems had gone dark. "How is this possible?" demanded Emperor Valavix, his crystalline form pulsing with agitation. They were nothing, primitives barely capable of reaching their own moon, when our ancestors had already mapped the galaxy. High Intelligence Director Moravan's appendages flickered nervously as he addressed the Emperor. "We may have miscalculated, Your Radiance. Our assessment of human technological capability was based on their public accomplishments and what they willingly showed us." "You mean they deceived us?" hissed Grand Admiral Zethvar. "Not actively deceived, Admiral. They simply never revealed their true development. While we observed their civilian technology and modest space presence, they appear to have been building this fleet in secret for decades. The scattered settlements we dismissed as disorganized colonial efforts may have been cover-ups for massive shipyards and military installations." The War Council fell silent as the implications sank in. For half a century, while the Vashiri had patronizingly offered humans limited trade routes and restricted technological exchange, humanity had been preparing for war on a scale the Empire had never anticipated. "What do they want?" asked the Emperor finally. "Have they made any demands?" "None, Your Radiance," responded the Communications Director. "They maintain absolute silence on all standard frequencies. They do not respond to hails, offers of negotiation, or threats." High Counselor Imarithi, the oldest voice in the chamber, spoke softly. "Perhaps we should ask ourselves what we did to them." All eyes turned to the ancient Vashiri. 50 years ago, representatives of humanity came to us seeking equal diplomatic recognition. We classified them as inferiors and restricted their development. We limited their expansion to their home system while our own colonies pressed against their borders. We denied them technologies that might have benefited their people while extracting resources from their region of space. She paused, her crystalline form dimming slightly. "What we see approaching is not a random attack. It is retribution." The silence that followed was broken by an urgent communication from the commander of the Combined Defense Fleet positioned to protect the core systems. "War Council, this is Admiral Telveris. The human fleet has divided into 3 battle groups. They are advancing on Vashur Prime from different vectors, moving faster than we anticipated. Their propulsion technology appears significantly more advanced than our intelligence suggested. Estimate contact with our defensive line in 6 hours." Grand Admiral Zethvar took control of the tactical display, highlighting the positions of the Imperial Defense Forces. "We have consolidated our remaining fleets to form a defensive perimeter around the core systems. 25,000 warships, our finest commanders, and the most advanced weapons in our arsenal. Whatever advantage they had through surprise is gone. Now they face the true might of the Vashiri Empire." The Emperor nodded, some of his confidence returning. "No force has breached the core systems in 9,000 years. Even if these humans have built themselves an impressive fleet, they cannot hope to match millennia of Vashuri military supremacy. 6 hours later, that supreme confidence shattered along with the first wave of the Imperial defense line. The human fleet approached with the same eerie silence that had marked their advance across Imperial space. The vanguard consisted of smaller vessels, frigates and destroyers by Imperial classification standards, that accelerated toward the Vashuri line at speeds that should have torn them apart. "Fire," ordered Admiral Telverus, and the elegant crystalline warships of the Empire released their devastating energy weapons, beams of coherent light designed to slice through any known hull material. The beams struck the approaching human vessels and scattered, dissipating harmlessly against their dark hulls. "Impossible," whispered Telverus. "Increase power. Target the propulsion systems." The Imperial fleet intensified their barrage, but the human vessels continued their approach unhindered. Then, just as they came within range of the Imperial defenses, they opened fire. The weapons they deployed were unlike anything the Vashuri had encountered. Not energy weapons or conventional explosives, but projectiles that moved at relativistic speeds. Chunks of dense matter accelerated to near the speed of light. They tore through the crystalline hulls of the Imperial vessels as if they were made of vapor, leaving catastrophic damage in their wake. "Their kinetic weapons are bypassing our energy shields completely," reported the tactical officer, voice rising in panic. "Our defenses are calibrated for energy-based attacks." Within minutes, the first line of the Imperial defense fleet was in disarray. The elegant formations that had been the pride of the Vashuri military for millennia broke apart as commanders tried desperately to adapt to an enemy that fought with entirely different tactics and technology. On Vashur Prime, the War Council watched in horror as their military advantage evaporated. The tactical displays showed Imperial ships blinking out one after another. "How did we not know about these weapons?" demanded the Emperor. "How could our intelligence fail so completely?" High Intelligence Director Moravan's crystalline form had dulled to near opacity, a sign of extreme distress in a Vashuri. "The humans never deployed them in our presence before. All previous observations of their military exercises showed conventional propulsion and weapon systems. These are something new." "Not new," contradicted High Counselor Imarithi. "Hidden. There is a difference. They knew we were watching, and they showed us what they wanted us to see." As the battle raged in space above the Imperial homeworld, more data streamed in about the true nature of humanity's technological advancement. Their ships contained no crew. They were fully automated, controlled by artificial intelligence systems that could react and adapt at speeds even the Vashuri neural networks couldn't match. Their propulsion systems utilized principles of quantum manipulation that Imperial science had theorized, but never mastered. Their weapons were elegantly simple, using speed and mass rather than exotic energies, bypassing defenses designed for a different type of warfare entirely. "We need to negotiate," urged High Counselor Imarithi, "before it's too late." Grand Admiral Zethvar, watching his fleet disintegrate before an enemy he had dismissed just days earlier, nodded his agreement. "Open all communication channels. Broadcast our surrender if necessary. We must stop this now." But the humans maintained their silence. Wave after wave of their unmanned vessels crashed against the Imperial defenses, systematically dismantling the greatest military force the galaxy had ever known. Each time the Vashuri adapted a defense, the human fleet would shift tactics, relentless and implacable in their advance. 12 hours after the battle began, the last line of Imperial defenses collapsed. The human fleet now hung in orbit around Vashur Prime, tens of thousands of dark ships surrounding the gleaming crystal cities of the Imperial homeworld. In the Imperial Palace, Emperor Valovix prepared to address his people for what might be the last time. "Have they made any response to our offers of surrender?" he asked the communications director. "None, Your Radiance." They maintained their silence. However, the director hesitated. "Speak," commanded the Emperor. "We have detected a single vessel breaking from their formation, It appears to be heading for the palace landing platform, smaller than their military vessels, possibly a diplomatic craft. Hope flickered through the assembled Vashuri officials. Perhaps, even now, negotiation was possible. Perhaps the complete destruction of their civilization was not the humans' goal. The vessel that landed on the Imperial Palace platform was sleek and small compared to the behemoths that filled the sky above. It bore the same insignia as the larger ships, Earth circled by stars, but no weapons were visible on its exterior. A delegation of high officials, led by the Emperor himself, gathered to meet whatever emerged from the craft. The landing ramp descended, and a single figure walked out. She was small by Vashuri standards, with the bilateral symmetry and limited appendages typical of humans. Her skin was dark, her head covered with tightly curled black hair, and she wore a simple uniform bearing rank insignia that the Vashuri translators identified as indicating high command. "I am Fleet Admiral Amara Chen of the United States of Earth Federation," she said in perfect Vashuri. "I am authorized to accept your unconditional surrender." Emperor Valavix, ruler of 10,000 worlds, found himself speechless before this representative of a species he had dismissed as insignificant. Finally, he gathered his dignity. "The Vashuri Empire acknowledges its military defeat and offers terms for—" Admiral Chen raised a hand, cutting him off. "Not terms. Unconditional surrender. The dismantling of your military capabilities. The end of the Vashuri Empire as a political entity. The liberation of all worlds under your control." "This is unprecedented," stammered the Emperor. "We have ruled the stars for 12,000 years. We have brought order and stability to the galaxy." "You have brought subjugation," replied Chen, her voice level. "You have suppressed technological development in species you deemed inferior. You have extracted resources from worlds that did not belong to you. You have played at being gods while standing on the backs of those you conquered." High Counselor Imarathi moved forward. "Admiral, if I may ask, why now? Why wait 50 years to strike against us?" For the first time, a small smile appeared on the human's face. "When we first encountered your empire, we were indeed the primitives you believed us to be. We had just achieved faster-than-light travel. We had only a handful of colony ships. We were eager to join the galactic community as equals." Her smile faded. "Instead, you classified us as inferiors. You restricted our development. You contained us to our home system while your colonies pressed against our borders. You denied us technologies that might have benefited our people while extracting resources from our region of space." The Vashuri leaders recognized their own words being thrown back at them. "So we adapted," continued Admiral Chen. "We built our fleet in the spaces you didn't bother to monitor. We developed technologies you had dismissed as theoretical. We united our planet in a way we never had before, with a single purpose: to ensure that humanity would never be subjugated by a species that viewed us as lesser beings." "And now," asked the Emperor, "is your purpose our destruction?" Admiral Chen shook her head. "Our purpose is liberation. For ourselves, and for every species you've classified and contained. The age of the Vashuri Empire is over. The age of galactic cooperation begins today." As the human admiral laid out the terms of surrender, the Vashuri leaders began to understand the full scope of humanity's plan. They had not come merely to defeat the Empire militarily, but to fundamentally reshape the political structure of the galaxy. Every subjugated species would be granted independence. Every restricted technology would be shared freely. The elaborate classification system that had placed the Vashuri at the pinnacle of galactic civilization would be dismantled completely. "You expect us to simply accept this?" asked Grand Admiral Zethar, outrage overcoming his fear. Admiral Chen's expression hardened. "Look to your skies, Admiral. Your choice is simple: evolution or extinction. The Vashuri may continue to exist as one species among many in a new galactic order, or you may resist and be removed from the equation entirely. Humanity has prepared for this moment for half a century. We prefer your cooperation. but we do not require it." As the significance of her words sank in, Emperor Valovix made the first wise decision of his reign. He bowed his crystalline head to the human admiral. The Vashuri Empire surrenders unconditionally to the United States of Earth Federation. And so fell the mighty Vashuri, not with a desperate last stand, but with the quiet recognition that they had fundamentally misjudged a species they had deemed insignificant. They had mistaken patience for weakness, preparation for inactivity, and silence for acceptance. They had looked upon humanity and seen primitives barely worth their notice. Humanity had looked upon the Vashuri Empire and seen a future threat to their existence, and they had planned accordingly. The dark ships remained in orbit around Vashur Prime for 1 standard year as the terms of surrender were implemented across the former empire. Then, as suddenly as they had appeared, they departed, returning to Earth and the colonies the Vashuri had never bothered to look for. They left behind a transformed galaxy. Species that had been subjugated for millennia now governed themselves. Technologies that had been restricted flowed freely between worlds. And the Vashuri, once the unquestioned masters of the stars, found themselves learning to exist as equals among those they had ruled. The last Vashuri emperor, reflecting on the fall of his civilization, penned words that would be studied by generations to come. "We fell not because humanity was stronger, but because we were blind. In our certainty of superiority, we failed to see that they were not evolving to become like us. They were evolving to overcome us. The greatest defeat is not to lose to an enemy you respect, but to discover too late that your enemy deserved your respect all along."